Good morning, everyone. My name is Mighty Stream. Today is November the 7th. I'm going to do your spiritual principle a day in a meditation. I'm brought to you by Hope Through Navigation, and this is our Hood Recovery Services. You can reach me at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. Okay, I hope you're having a beautiful morning. Well, I'm running a little slow today, but I still feel well. I do feel well and my spirit feels well. That's what I mean to say. Okay, let's get this where we can actually see it. Hopefully you can see that. Can you see that? Okay. Let's go ahead and read it. It is our spiritual principle day talking about that was yesterday, so we need one more, okay? November 7th. Purpose and our path forward. Faith in the process means believing that we are moving in the right direction, even if it's not where we thought we would be going. Living Clean, Chapter 1, Desperation to Passion. Faith in the process means believing that we are moving in the right direction, even if it's not where we thought we'd be going. Sounds interesting. I want to increase that size a little bit, okay? On the day of our first NA meeting, we may have predictions about what our lives will look like without drugs. But what if our dreams don't come true? Desperation has forced us to strive for something new, but what will it be? We now have choices about how we live that we didn't have before. But how do we know which is the right path and if we're following our life's true purpose? If we don't have a whole lot of faith in the future, how can we get more? Whatever questions we have about finding our true purpose, the same crystal ball that didn't work when we were high doesn't when we're clean either. Thankfully, more is revealed as we stay clean. Through the steps, we discover our values and convictions. For many of us, that means our purpose radically shifts, or we find one at last. Recovery gives us a chance to revisit goals that addiction interfered with, or we start from scratch. Hope helps us to believe we're headed down the right path, and faith keeps our feet moving in that direction. We find purpose or many purposes as time passes. In NA, in a career, in relationships, in our communities, on a mountaintop, in a foreign land, or in sitting still. We learn to serve others more than our egos. We practice self-acceptance and model it for newer members who think that being okay with themselves is unattainable. Many of us also have or regain and revitalize our faith in a God who has a plan for us that we can't predict, ardently believing this plan is better than one we could create on our own. Others find purpose in a life guided by spiritual principles or believe the universe conspires in our favor, cheering us on. Having faith in finding and living our purpose takes practice. Recovery in NA provides us with tools to manage our discomfort with trial and error, impossible with plenty of open-mindedness, without plenty of open-mindedness and willingness along the journey. Let me reread that last sentence for you, okay? Recovery in NA provides us with tools to manage our discomfort with trial and error, impossible without plenty of open-mindedness and willingness along the journey. I can't predict the future, but I believe I have one. I will move in a direction and see where the path leads. It's worth staying alive to find out. I like that. It's worth staying alive to find out. We've come so far in our lives. If we're listening to this podcast, recovery has become a part of your everyday life. And if you're new, welcome. And hopefully, recovery is a part of your everyday life. And that's how or why you found um, this podcast on this meditation. In living, even though it may not always be pleasant, is worth living, right? It's especially worth living when we apply the spiritual principles of the steps of the NA program to our lives. I like how it says it doesn't really matter where we're at, right? We could be, time will pass, whether it's in relationship to a career, relationships, our communities, on a mountaintop, in a foreign land, or sitting still, right? We learn to practice self-acceptance and model it, even though it may not always be perfect for newer members, so that they understand that no matter what, you need not use drugs no matter what. Good days, I don't use. On top of the mountaintop, I don't use. Underneath the mountaintop, I don't use. Bad days, I don't use. Marriages, I don't use. Divorces, I don't use. Children that hate you, I don't use. Accolades from children that love you today but hate you tomorrow, I don't use. People that love you when you give and do what they want, but hate you when you don't, I don't use. I choose to be a part of my life in recovery on a day-to-day basis. I participate in it on a day-to-day basis. You participate in your recovery, in your life on a day-to-day basis. We choose on this path to live and to live to the fullest degree possible, to the happiest level or more joyful or fulfilling levels as possible. And it begins first with not picking up the drug, but second, being willing to do the work on ourselves. Some people can only take so much structure, right? And when you start talking about the 12 steps and you start talking about there's a working book, a working guidebook rather, that helps you go through the steps, and you should never do them by yourself. Have a sponsor. Some people are not able to readily grab onto that. They've been so used to operating on their own. They're more introverted. And a lot of times that's a facade. They're not really introverted. They are introverted according to what is needed, right? They're still in the practice of manipulating people and situations. And the less exposure they have to, let's say, us in general, they just come into the meeting, do their little thing, and go back out, right? And not to use, but to live their life. They come back in and they make their meetings, get their paper signed. They go back out, do what they need to do until the next meeting. But they have no intention on having a relationship with anyone within the fellowship. Because the more people you invite into your life that are in this same process, and maybe even further along than you of recovery, the more likely it is that your your schisms, right? Those errors that happen in our thinking will be revealed. You may be cognizant of them, but maybe other people aren't. And so they can't be your eyes and ears. They can't speak to your situations. because they don't know you and you're not making yourself available. You're not open-minded in that way, right? And that's a horrible place to be because when your back is up against the wall, you're going to come out swinging, hopefully. But a lot of times when your back is up against the wall, you'll end up picking up something that is mind and mood altering. It doesn't necessarily have to be a drug. It can be a behavior. It could be gambling. It could be sex. It could be, it could be a behavior. But how much sweeter life would be if we had comrades in the fellowship that could be a part of this journey for us. Because a lot of times, what we're lacking is that we have a lot of knowledge about all the wrong stuff. We have very little knowledge about the God of our understanding. We have very little knowledge about ourselves and what our true purpose is. And without that, we end up running circles around ourselves. We're on a path forward, but it's circular. So at some point in time, you hit 0 degrees again, and you just go back another 360, right? But generally, if you could make that same motion of putting one foot in front of the other in a linear motion forward, moving forward, you'll make progress instead of finding yourself in the same spot year after year after year after year after year. So I would like to encourage you today to develop faith enough to have some other people in your life. And if you're finding that, you're in the same place with the same people that you've always had in your life, maybe it's time to add a couple other people that might be, I don't want to say further along, it sounds so condescending, but can add to your recovery life and are not afraid to speak up into you. You don't want a lot of yes people in your life. You do not want to have a lot of yes people where you're barking all the orders and everyone else is moving and jumping according to how high you tell them to do it. You want someone that can come along and be more of a peer, that you will allow to be able to have a say in your life and not always agree with you. It's beautiful to have faith, right? Faith is important. And faith, you'll find, will help you to stay the course, even when you're not sure of what the course is. Faith will allow you to open the door and let other people in that have something to bring to your table other than just doing everything that you tell them to do when you tell them to do it. Most of us have children in our lives, but for a lot of us, our children are now grown, but we tend to treat people in our lives like they're our children instead of our equals or our peers, or that they might actually have an opinion about something or knowledge about something that we don't. Faith can open up doors that a lot of other spiritual principles cannot. Open-mindedness is one as well, right? Because we want to be able to move forward and give God a chance to expand us. But a lot of times the faith is not there. We're feeling like if I can't see God, right? I can't trust God. If I don't believe this particular way, then it's the same as not believing at all. No, belief is powerful. Faith is powerful. Regardless to your higher power or lack of a higher power, having faith in something larger than yourself, excuse me, knocking around my microphone here, is powerful. So I want for you to think about that today, that maybe you can't predict the future. Maybe you can't trust God. Track God. right? You can't predict the future. You don't know the next steps. You can't track God, but you do have faith. You have the ability to trust your higher power. I want you to rest on that today and to move into another arena. Get out of the rut that you're in and move into another arena and watch these other doors just fly open, other opportunities just fly open to you. My name is Mighty Stream. Hope this was helpful for you today. I hope I didn't confuse you in any kind of way. It's never my intention to do that, but some of this is just so scrumptious. It's hard to just focus on one particular point. But the point that you should take away is that faith will keep your feet moving in a positive direction, the right path, and that it's worth having it. It's worth living today. Have a beautiful day, and I will be talking to you tomorrow.